most of my days.
I thought you were going to keep going.
I can.
I've already started the remix.
Maxing, relaxing, all cool, and all shooting some b-ball outside of school when a couple of guys that are up to no good
Started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom got snared and said,
"What's wrong with your
My
auntie and uncle
mom got
in Bel Air?"
snared too.
and we're recording, so that's all we
She
can
was
put on this episode.
ensnared in...
Were we recording, really?
We're recording that, so we can't do any more of the Fresh Prince theme. We will get sued for copyright infringement.
Because I was singing it so well.
So are we recording?
We are.
Do you want to start, or do you want
recording
me to start?
Well,
hello. Welcome
okay,
to Film
Stop that.
Fracas.
Shut up. No. Shut up. I'm doing it.
Can we put that in the previously on?
Oh, I'm going to keep all...
Oh,
this can all be kept in.
Yeah, okay.
I'll let
All right.
you just, take any of this and put it in the previously on, Brett.
Fantastic.
Okay, bring it down.
Snared.
Come in when you're ready.
Oh, snare.
And now, on with the show.
Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Film Fracas.
You just walked in. We just walked in.
We all just walked in 4 separate doors into a long corridor.
That contained
Had
4
a
microphones.
table and 4 microphones, and we all sat down. That's why it's so echoey.
We've never met each other before.
None of us have ever seen each other before. To my left, I have one Phoenix, the Party Zamboni, Mr. Headphones, so cool, the famous, the undisputed champion of the world, Phoenix Rolla.
Phoenix is waving.
He's
'cause he
waving.
doesn't know
He's
what
waving at the mic.
microphone is.
He's lost his voice.
Hello, everyone.
He made
it's
a
me.
deal with a sea witch. Now he
guys.
has legs.
I had a bit of stage fright, but I'm back.
Hey guys, it's me, Phoenix Zorola. This is the beginning of my episode of Film Fracas.
And if you're kind enough, I might be able to hook you up with another one.
And to his left, we have Robbie, the Shazy DeShazer.
I've never
The
heard that one.
Shazy.
I've had so many mispronunciations of my name over the years, and that is a brand new one.
Can we call you Slim Shazy?
He's the real Slim Shazy.
That was me standing up.
I love that.
Robbie's now left the long extended corridor with 4 doors for some reason.
But who's to your right?
But to my right, we have Brett, the Rock, the one, the only, Brett Johnson.
Oh, hey.
Happy to be here.
This has been the best intro to the show we've ever done.
This went off the rails immediately.
I'm loving it.
We were so fine. Why did we all just get all loopy and ridiculous?
Because we're recording 2 episodes.
This is what happens.
The second one always suffers.
So this is our 5th episode?
Yeah, this is episode 5.
This is episode 5. Episode 5. See, our last episode, we talked about story, and we said a bit of fond farewell to Atlantis, the Lost Empire, because it was a shit story.
That's right. You
This
heard
isn't as
it.
big of an
That's
upset.
right. We
Yes.
all. It was
That's
a.
not an upset.
It was a unanimous vote. We
Except
all
for you.
hated Atlantis.
That was not
it was so
unanimous.
bad. The
Why-
worst story.
Why are you lying?
It was just the worst.
I said it was
Lying.
good.
So
Why you always lying? Oh my god.
so this week,
I'm fucking lying.
this week we'll be discussing
Can't take you guys anywhere.
our last group of characters this week. We'll be discussing our protagonists, our main characters, our people in charge, the people who get the arc, the people who run the movie, so to speak.
I thought
The
you were
hero.
literally talking about Indiana Jones getting the arc.
Yes,
The
Oh,
hero.
that's what you meant.
the character arc
Oh.
of the Covenant,
ARC.
Yeah, the Golden Arcus.
the character arc of the Covenant. Yep.
Wait, is character ARC or ARCH?
Character?
Arc. Like character
Arc?
arc. ARC.
It's ARC.
Okay.
ARCH is arch.
Phoenix, didn't
Like
you
a-
just graduate from film
Like
school?
a curved like
Yes,
a clerk
it's
like a
ARC.
curved
Bachelor
archway.
of Science. I don't know spelling.
Well,
That's fair.
Science. SIE.
You can't argue with that logic.
Anyway,
So we're talking about Protagonist. Shall we get started?
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get right off the bat. We're going to clear up any kind of confusion here. We're going to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. We discussed,
Hey.
there's been some discussion since our last, the side characters one, where we talked about the nature of the character of one Captain Jack Sparrow. And we have decided, because he went unconsidered in that category, to consider Jack Sparrow a main character. So, Phoenix, did you have something you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, there was, some debate off mic and some debate since the episode, but I think we're gonna just settle with Jack Sparrow, and let's talk about him as the main character.
That's I feel like that's fair.
Yeah.
What do you think of Jack Sparrow as a main character, Phoenix?
I mean, it goes without saying he's one of the more iconic characters of Disney, live action Disney per se.
Even in Disney in general, I mean, very few times has a character been inspired by a ride and then retroactively put into that ride at the Disney parks.
That's true. That's true. And I think so much of his likability comes to like his mannerisms, his movement, his jokes, his like seemingly impossible luck that he carries throughout the film. A lot of Johnny Depp's performance of the character, which like if it was someone else, maybe would not be the same. I think I credit the person for creating his character, but I mean, I almost want to give more of the credit to Johnny Depp for really bringing it out as the main, bringing it to life and really making it shine.
Yeah.
I think he presents a nice foil to Captain Barbossa in this movie. Like, I think their lifelong rivalry that exists before the movie starts plays a nice role for the when the movie keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he really holds this franchise up. I just think he's like a pretty great character.
Yeah. He provides a lot of chaos that is in direct conflict with the order of the British Empire.
Yeah.
With all the soldiers, with even, the orders, the order that is set forth within, like, the pirate code.
Yeah.
So there's, he provides provides a lot of fun, but he also, he's the heart of the character-driven aspect of the story.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Now, Carter, do you have anything against this to say? Because I know you argued that he was a side character, so I want to...
Well, here's where I'm at, guys. So, in the side character episode, I maintain that he is a side character. You could I even said in that episode, I recall, you could make the argument that he's a co-lead, but I think that ultimately, and we were talking about this earlier, I think he's very much like Han Solo. You wouldn't call Han Solo, the main character of Star Wars. That's Luke Skywalker.
But he is the main character of Solo, a Star Wars
A
story.
Star Wars story in theaters now. But it's fine. Yeah. I think okay, if you're treating him as a main character, he does have an arc. I mean, his thing is ultimately getting revenge on Barbossa, and he is the primary foil for Barbossa. But like, Will also has a need to defeat Barbossa because he wants to get back Elizabeth, and so that's his driving force to defeat Barbossa. And I mean, the whole movie is framed around the relationship between Will and Elizabeth. That's how it begins, and then Jack is introduced well into the story, and so you kind of have the whole movie is centered around their love. It also ends with their like beautiful kiss, and then you have Jack kind of going off into the sunset, like his work here is done. But that's because he like helped them, not necessarily because like his was the story that had a conclusion, because his is the ultimately open-ended one in that story. Like, Will and Elizabeth they're in this one place and they work towards this ending place where they end up, and it has a finality and satisfactory ending.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of lean more towards Jack being a side character and not as much of a main character.
Yeah, because you see him more as like a genie in Aladdin type.
Yeah, like Genie Aladdin or Han Solo.
Yeah.
Someone who helps facilitate the story and who can be like a very well-developed and interesting character who has their own story arc. Because like Han Solo has a full character arc in the Star Wars movies. Like, he's not without development. And so Jack Sparrow goes through development and like has this goal of, defeating Barbossa, but so does Will and so does the British Empire because they're trying to get Elizabeth back as well. Everyone's trying to get back Elizabeth. And so that's kind of the driving force for the majority of the characters. It's only Jack who has this other kind of motivation to defeat Barbossa, which is revenge. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. I think.
I see where you're coming from, and I see when we talk about, last week's episode, we talked about the classic structure there being that, like, the Prince Charming is Will and all that stuff. So I can see where you're coming from, but I think just based in screen time and the amount of time you spend with Jack and his prominence in everything from marketing to...
See, I would not count marketing in this. Sorry to cut you off, but I would not count marketing in this at all because this was a movie that no one thought would succeed. And so they purposefully put Jack Sparrow front and center in all of the marketing and everything because they were using him to pretty much solely sell this movie.
Yeah.
And so that's not necessarily about what the film is itself. That's just how they tried to sell it. So I would not include that.
Yeah, and I'm not... It's not my biggest point here, but, the amount of time you spend with Jack, and maybe part of that is the marketing with, in the edit, they were like, well, let's put as much Jack in as possible. But still, I think that just when it comes down to it, he's who you spend the most time with. He's your memorable hero for the movie. Like, Will is kind of a plain bagel, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But so is Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
So...
But we're not comparing it to Star Wars this season, so...
Yeah, that's...
No, but I'm using it as a comparison, because that's a movie you can compare it to with a similar structure.
Yeah, but I would, to entertain this, comparison, I think what Luke Skywalker is able to do is he's able to kind of do actions and kind of advance and train himself to then solve his own problems or, find his own purpose and stuff like that. Whereas in Pirates of the Caribbean, I kind of see Jack as the hero because he's the one who can, sends these people off with him to help save Elizabeth. He's the one who, he commands the ship. He gets the luck at the end when he fights Barbossa and stuff, or not fights, but they have that thing in the cave with the skulls and when they're trying to get the Black Pearl. And I kind of see him as the one who has the ability. I kind of see him as a weird kind of, I don't know if superhero-y type thing is the right word, but he's I see him as an exterior figure trying to save the day of these people, regular people and these normal people. And in that sense, I kind of see him as the protagonist. I see him as a helpful savior.
He's only coming to save them because Will goes and gets him and asks for his help, though. That's the difference.
That's true, but I don't see that as... when I think of Will, I still don't see Will as the guy who's really winning and defeating on his own. I see Jack Sparrow more like that. Whereas when I look at Star Wars, I could see Luke actually fighting and confronting the main villain and flying and stuff. Granted, in that one, Han Solo does help save him too, but I think if you're comparing they're fighting the exterior antagonist and fighting the villain and trying to actually save the day. Well, I think Jack Sparrow gets the edge there.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I give it to they could be almost co-leads because it's where do you define protagonist as the person who holds the main character arc of the story or the person who is the biggest foil for the villain? Because I would say definitely in this movie, Jack Sparrow is the biggest and main foil for the villain and vice versa. But I would say that the heart and character arc of the story, the arc of the story itself belongs to the love story between Will and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. My only thing about that is, does that necessarily make it a problem in terms of talking about strong protagonists? Whereas the two kind of share responsibilities.
Yeah.
One shares,
so if they're co-protagonists, then I'd say they're still both very strong. I think they're both strong characters on their own.
This is definitely a Fellowship versus Frodo argument kind of here. Is the whole group together the protagonist, or is it, the single guy? And I think when we have to come down to choosing one person, I think it's easiest to talk about Jack. I think he is your most prominent. So let's just move on from that and talk about his strengths and weaknesses as that protagonist.
Jack?
Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, I kind of said what I was going to say about him. I think he's got a lot of likability in terms of his humor. his relationship with with Will and with Elizabeth, his forever like unreasonable or unavoidable luck that he seems to have is pretty charming in itself and causes him to be pretty likable, which is funny because generally we'll dislike people if they kind of survive only on luck, but for some reason he can make it work to make him like happy to see him succeed through luck. And I think he's just an like a very likable character that is pretty different in terms. I think we can at least agree on that he's pretty different in terms of characters in movies and characters in stories, where he kind of plays this kind of hero but not heroic character, which I think is really cool.
He's not quite an anti-hero either.
Right.
Yeah.
When I think the luck factor, it definitely plays a role in his character, but I think it's not nearly as played up in this movie as it is in others, because in other movies they eventually come to just rely on his spontaneous like falling backwards into success,
and it's worse.
And it's worse, yeah. And this one, a lot of the times when he's like lucky, are usually because of his own like intelligent design, like figuring out a plan to execute it, and then it just happens to work out exactly as he wanted it to. And so I think they show Jack Sparrow as a much more savvy and smart character in this one.
Yeah, he's got some interesting like tricks up his sleeve in this one, whereas in the others he just like, oh, I'm falling.
Yeah, he's much more bumbling later on.
Yeah, but this one he can like kind of think of stuff on the fly, and I think causes him to be pretty smart.
So I would say here's my argument to settle the is this about Jack Sparrow or not? The Lonely Island wrote a song called Jack Sparrow, and he said this is the tale of Captain Jack Sparrow. So there's my final argument, my final nail in the coffin of this.
And who are we to deny Michael Bolton?
I don't think in the end we necessarily have to decide whether or not Jack is the main. I think if we can all agree to accept he's at least a main character or at least a co-lead.
I can accept that he's a co-lead.
Yeah, just whether or not we consider him overall in the judging of this category.
Yeah.
Which I would say we should.
Yeah. Brett, do you have anything to say on him?
I don't consider Jack Sparrow to be the protagonist of this movie. Co-lead, maybe, but I feel that Will is the protagonist, because it's Will that's making all the choices. Because I hate to be that guy, but like back in film school, like learn about like who the protagonist is. It's like the protagonist is the person that makes the decisions, that drives the story forward. And if you go by that definition, then like that's Will in this movie, and Jack is just kind of like he's just the guy who's like has the luck. And I think Robbie used the term like upwardly failing, or like failing upwards.
Falling backwards into.
Falling backwards.
Back in like episode 1, I think you said just he like fails upwards the entire movie, but like it's just kind of falling backwards into luck, and like everything just kind of like works out for him, and like yes, like in this movie it is a little more like calculated, and it's him like just being like this like chaotic neutral kind of like unpredictable kind of guy, whereas later on he is just kind of like
he's extremely
look that worked out. How about that? But it's like Johnny Depp does bring like that great charm to it, and like he is like this really likable character, but it's like, okay, he's just lucky, and just like he just knows everything about everything that's going on, which it's just kind of like okay. And like Carter has compared him to the genie, and it's kind of like, yeah, he's just kind of this wellspring of knowledge that's just kind of like, I know where everybody is. Whereas like Will actually, like in like the start of the movie, Jack's a pirate. The end of the movie, Jack's a pirate that worked with some people, but he's still the same Jack. Whereas Will
was this blacksmith who
Will
ended as a pirate.
Will actually went through a character arc. Will actually had the development and the change. Will made the decisions, and so it's like if we're considering Jack to be the protagonist, then it's like, sure, he's the protagonist. He's likable. He's cool. Like everybody loves him. I love him. Like there's no denying that. But if he is the protagonist, he's not a too terribly great one.
Yeah. So do we want to take him as co-leads maybe?
That's what I think would be the best option. Because like I said, depending on how you want to define protagonist, because the one thing that he does have that is significant to the story is he has the most direct emotional connection to the villain, and does ultimately resolve the conflict with the villain.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so if you want to take them as co-leads in that like the heart and character arc of the movie belongs to like Will and Elizabeth, or Will, And then, like, the kind of arc of the villain and foil of the film belongs to Jack, so I would say we could consider them as co-leads.
Yeah.
At least for in discussion.
At least for this discussion.
Yeah.
There's more discussion we can have.
Yeah.
Maybe that's for a bonus episode one day.
Yeah. We'll do like we said, we'll do a Twitter poll.
Absolutely. Maybe we should do a Twitter poll right before this episode comes out. So you guys will already know the answer before this even starts.
Yeah.
And you'll just think we're dumb the whole time.
Yep. And this is us being dumb. That's
Right
the
now.
tagline for the podcast. Us being dumb.
But let's talk about a
Hashtag
couple
fun
other.
facts.
We got some other movies to talk about. We don't just have. This
Yeah,
isn't
let's-
Pirates of the
let's move
Caribbean
along.
Fracas. This is Film Fracas. So we got some other movies to talk about.
We
Film of
do.
the Caribbean.
Let's move on to The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid.
She's little.
I think it's
Little
Scuttle.
Mermaid.
Scuttle. So Scuttle is the protagonist
I
because
thought Flotsam and Jetsam were the best protagonists of this movie.
The co-lead.
well,
the co-leads.
they were the co-leads
Leads.
because of their arc of how you
Yeah.
know, they're King Triton's lost sons.
I thought
I think it's Ariel's sisters.
Ariel's 5 sisters are the best
5-way co-lead.
5-week co-leads of this. No,
Okay.
I think Ariel
is clear. She's
I love
Really?
this is clear.
Actually.
Ariel is the
is
protagonist.
the protagonist.
Yes, Ariel's the protagonist of this movie.
We talked about it in the story episode last
Yeah.
week. but
Honestly,
it's about her wanting agency and freedom
Yeah.
from her overprotective father.
is she the strongest protagonist though?
I really do think she is, and
Doesn't
I mean-
talk a lot.
She doesn't talk a lot.
that's
Not
That's
necessarily.
not her fault.
Not- yeah, not
I mean, it
necess-
is her fault, but
Not necessarily a knock to her character.
not a knock to her character.
Yeah.
Just
Because even when she loses her voice, she still like
Yeah.
tries to make it work, and she still tries to
Yeah.
get by. And she almost has it, but then
I mean, she's really great. She's headstrong, and that's why she thinks that without her voice, she can still make Eric fall in love with her.
Yeah.
Which she, let's be clear, she does do. She does it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she does it so
She-
well that Ursula has to,
Ursula has to bump in and
and
some
steal her
magic.
man right from under her.
steal her man.
But I think like this is,
Yeah.
she's such an interesting character because unlike some other princesses from the past, she's not just this passive, she doesn't just want a life with a prince, or she wants, some,
Yeah, she doesn't sing a song about how she wants a guy to come and marry her.
right. She wants something
she
more
wants
than
to
what
be
she
a
has, which
part
is
of someone's world.
yes.
That's bad. Like I don't.
But
Sometimes I'll let things slide. That was just forced.
That was lazy.
So-
And
Kinda
lazy and shoehorned, and I just
not your best.
like a lot of princesses, she does want to, she wants more than what she starts with, which I think is actually a great place for any protagonist to start with, is a desire for something.
Yeah.
And, even though she comes from a privileged life underwater, she's fallen in love with this prince. She wants to be where the people are. She wants to see them
now
dancing.
That was better.
yeah. That's how you do a good one of those, Carter.
That was better.
Yeah.
You could just call me up. I'm
Take
just
notes.
a poor unfortunate soul.
That was bad.
That was a bad one.
Like, God.
They're only gonna get
Anyway-
worse.
Anyway, to get back on track.
He's
here,
just a
'cause-
lepoisson.
Yeah, Robbie.
Brett, come on,
Like-
save this.
Just kiss
Anyway.
the girl, Brett.
Save
Under
us.
the sea.
Anyway,
Well, anyway, to get this back on track here.
Brett has picked up his microphone.
Why do you have to bring attention to every little thing that happens, Robbie? Anyway, to get this back on track, Ariel wants her agency, and the whole movie's about her fighting for something, which up to that point you haven't really had too much of from the Disney princesses, and she goes and straight up disobeys and goes against her father and again you look at the ones that come to mind are Cinderella and Snow White, where they're just kind of
Yeah.
I guess this is the life, this is my life, and then
Right.
something happens and they're like, oh, my life, whereas Ariel's kind of no, this is my life, I'm 16, I'm not a kid, I'm gonna take charge of my life and do what I want, and just the very headstrong and determined and pretty overall pretty confident, which is
Yeah.
yeah.
When we talk about, you were mentioning the person who is the protagonist is the one who makes the decisions that move the plot forward. And so unlike Aurora in Sleeping Beauty, who her pricking her finger on the spindle is like, it's predetermined. It's an action that's going to happen. Like Ariel,
she just sleeps the rest of the movie.
yeah,
She just
Ariel
What
makes
decision she making there? None.
she chooses to, follow Flotsam and Jetsam to, to Ursula, and she makes the decision to make that deal.
she chooses to have her voice taken away.
Yeah.
She takes on that challenge, and then she, it's
Yeah,
all about the
that's
choices
true.
that she makes, and
Sha-la-la-la-la. My oh my.
Carter.
Like, why are you trying to sabotage your own creation?
All right.
But yeah,
But-
I
I think Ariel's a fantastic protagonist. She's one of the more headstrong, determined Disney princesses.
Yeah. I mean, I think what this comes down to as like, if you boil this movie down, it's about kind of like a young woman who's just trying to like change and be her own person aside from her parents' role. Like if that's like, I would say that's the takeaway for the children at least, is like taking away that moral thing of being your own person and being independent and finding yourself within yourself. And this is where it will get a little subjective, and I understand if I'm different than everyone else. My only critique for Ariel is that I kind of find her to be pretty bland, and that's kind of what I was getting at with the whole she doesn't talk much thing. Is that I feel like when I watch The Little Mermaid and I see Ariel, I feel maybe even purposeful because it has this like message that should apply to a lot of people, but it just feels like many people can be inserted in that, or it almost feels like she's just more of a representation of something as opposed to being her own person. Like she doesn't have much, like, I would say, personality to herself other than what is needed to drive the story along, which is why I'm not saying she's a bad protagonist, because I think she's good. But when you get into like being when you get into this kind of subjectivity, it's sort of or this kind of nitpickiness, it kind of comes down to subjectivity here, and I find her to be a little bland and not showing much personality.
Like, yeah, I totally see what you're saying, and that makes me think of back in season 1 when we were talking about Little and the dude, and how it's kind of like, oh, they're just like these. I think Robbie said like intentionally vague, and it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, they're just kind of like there, and like anybody could be inserted, but it's like that also kind of like it starts for them to be like relatable, so you can like connect with them and have like, it's easier to be invested in them because you be like, oh, like this could be me when I was 16 years old, or like this could be another child, and just like I understand if you subjectively like, I understand that you don't like it, I totally get that, but I think it works for like the message that the movie is saying, and like I can understand why you would count it as a knock. Like I totally get it, but to play devil's advocate, I wouldn't say that it does, because her character works to really hammer home the message.
Right, and I mean, this is one where I would say I don't find many negatives to it, which is why like, and I'm saying this right now as like, it's not like a strong problem, because again, this is just a subjective thing.
Right,
I can't
right.
I won't say this is the biggest problem of the movie or whatever, like why is she so bland or whatever, like,
But hey,
it's
we're
just,
down to our final four, so this
yeah,
is like,
it has to like twist, like I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
I just find her to be a little bland, especially when you consider to other princesses. I feel like sometimes in other movies, maybe in like the one we're going to talk about in a little bit, they kind of show a little bit more personality and kind of stray a bit from just being like sort of like a representation of, or a relatability factor for everybody.
yeah.
And I agree with you that I think, especially when you consider all the other protagonists that we have left to talk about, I would say that perhaps the most bland is Ariel. I think she has perhaps the least personality. That's not to say she doesn't do well as the protagonist or doesn't represent.
This is where because you've both said it, I don't think she lacks personality though. Like that she's rebellious, like she's very rebellious and strong-headed and determined. Like I feel like there's multiple qualities to her that I feel like are either getting skipped over because she doesn't talk for a lot of the movie, or I'm just trying to figure out like where.
I think my problem is like the only two kind of modes I see her as being like very independent and very, I guess, like very romantic. I guess because she's like very like in love with what's the prince's name? Eric. But aside from that, I can't really give like I don't necessarily find other parts of her that maybe other ambitions or other kind of personalities like humor or kind of issues, I guess, or more complexity to it. I guess I kind of only see those two modes, and
There's like curiosity.
I will
with
say,
it.
I will say you get for the amount of film that you get to actually see her like talk and interact with people. They do a pretty good job of establishing who she is as a character, but I do think they do it is kind of a setback in the fact that she isn't able to like speak and communicate as effectively for the majority of the film, and that kind of shoots herself in the foot a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
maybe it's just two sides.
Just a little bit, yeah. But I see, because you're right, she is very headstrong and independent and rebellious, but you only get that a little bit at the beginning of the film, and it's not necessarily a through line that you see come up a lot in the rest of the film, and she doesn't necessarily display those qualities consistently throughout the film. And so it's one of those things where, like, with other protagonists we'll talk about today, pretty much all of their personality and, like, what they establish with, you see throughout the entire movie. And in this one, you don't get it as much, and it could be because she doesn't get the chance to communicate as often. But that's kind of one of those toss-up things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else to say there?
Not that I can think of. But if I do think of something,
we'll come back to
bring
it.
up.
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
Let's move on to the one I think we were all talking about in vague reference to, Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, the other princess on Earth.
Belle is a much better, I think, more developed princess.
I would say so too.
I think Belle has more personality. I think Belle has more kind of everything than Ariel. They have a somewhat similar goal, because like Ariel's trying to get agency out of like under the power of her father and like the royalty and whatnot, and Belle's trying to get agency basically from society to be this like strong independent woman.
I thought she just wanted something. I just thought she wanted like something new and something bigger than the town. Bigger than
where she. But they're kind of all trying to keep her there, and she's trying to want to be her own person, because like the fact that she reads and does all this and that's so.
So where
it's not exactly the same as Arrow, but I'm saying it's similar.
No, I got you.
But what I will say is, if you're saying that that's what her arc is about, is that is about agency, or are you saying that her arc is more tied to the general theme of inner beauty and
I mean the Beast's is certainly more about inner beauty. Hers herself I think is more about like I don't think hers is about agency. I think that's a part of it. Like I think Ariel's is definitely about agency, but I think there's a certain element of that in Belle's. No, I don't necessarily think Belle's is about inner beauty either, other than helping to find the Beast's inner beauty.
Yeah. So this is the thing. While she might be more realized, I don't know if her arc is as good as, say, Ariel's.
I could see that.
Belle doesn't really change. And I mean, that's kind of so that she can... So the Beast can change. Yeah, so that
she can facilitate the Beast's change.
But if we're talking about her as the protagonist... Yeah. I mean, she does not change much.
That's true.
She learns to love a beast. Yeah. But he turns out,
he turns out to be a beautiful man. So
yeah, I mean, the arc is really put on the Beast. Like, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's more.
Could you argue that the Beast is maybe your protagonist?
Could you argue that they're co-leads because the movie is Beauty and the Beast?
It's kind of like a Lilo and Stitch situation.
Yeah. You kind of have to have one because they facilitate each other's like character development.
Yeah. So I think this is one where you
would probably consider both.
Where the co-lead is probably a better contender for a co-lead than maybe Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So are we going to say just for
judging purposes? I would say a co-lead with Beauty and the Beast.
I think that's fair.
Sure. Is effective with this one.
Because I would say if we're just talking about Belle, I don't think she has much of an arc, and that might be a knock against
But I think she's a more realized character, so it's just...
Yeah, I mean,
where does it
I
play?
agree too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you find a lot of like her own charm, her own humor. You find a lot of like her own kind of like interests and stuff, and like her own kind of things she like you said, like she has this fanciness for like books, and she has these like playful and fun moments with the other not instruments, the other items, I guess, household items in the house and stuff, and then her own, just the way she interacts with the beast and stuff. I think we see a more Belle as a person, as other than like a medium for a message.
Yeah.
And then with the Beast, I mean, you get introduced to the Beast and his story is what frames the story at the beginning. You get, who he was, how he got to this situation is how the film begins. And so it's kind of laying out that his journey is the central arc of the movie.
And I think that's where I think that's what kind of hurts Little Mermaid a little more, is like, because Beauty and the Beast starts off and you're very clear on like, oh, okay, so this is what this movie is going to be about, this is where we're going to go, whereas Little Mermaid just kind of starts. Like even Atlantis kind of starts with like, oh yes, like Atlantis, and like you see this journal, and then it's very much like, oh okay, this is where we're going, like this is what this movie's going to be about. And then like Aladdin as well has the whole intro that we talked about last time, and so I think that's what helps put those movies a little bit above Little Mermaids, because Little Mermaid's like kind of, you don't really know where we're going to go, and so that is kind of reflected in Ariel a little bit to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I also don't think the Little Mermaid necessarily takes too long.
I get
what you're saying, but
I would say that's
as
more of a knock
as long as you got what I was trying to convey.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to convey. I think that's more of a knock for overall story, which is what we talked about last week. Than it is
probably it was just an observation.
I mean, I think
because what I think they were trying to do was to mark a difference from the earlier princess movies, which kind of all start with like a storybook opening or like, And they realized, after they made Little Mermaid, they were like, oh, we can still have a framing device and like we can still do that creatively. But I feel like they were trying to mark a difference between, Sleeping Beauty and The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, and I'm more comfortable with having Belle and the Beast as like co-leads, because I think more so than others, this one is very centric on the love story itself. Like it is the point, so you kind of have to have that kind of co-lead situation, especially when it kind of begins with the Beast's origin, and then we see like Belle sort of takes the protagonist route for a while, and then a lot of it's just their interactions. So it is kind of shared in that sense.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, do anyone have any other negatives than aside? Or no, that was a negative. But I guess Little Mermaid. Does anyone have any negatives on this?
So what I would say, my only negative is that if you are considering, 100% of your protagonist is 50% Belle, right?
Yeah.
That Belle, while she is more fully realized, she doesn't have much of an arc, and that's just
she needs one.
No, but that's what I was about to say. It's that she facilitates the Beast's arc, but when you're considering, 50% of what you're talking about does not have much development.
I mean, that's true, but that's because she's already a well-developed character.
Yeah, I mean, we could say that.
Yeah,
it's a little weird how it's so shared. I guess I can see what you're saying.
It's so shared, but one of them doesn't really change much. And we were talking about, there's a little bit of that Little Mermaid agency search in there, and you get some of that, and that she gets to choose who she falls in love with.
Yeah, I think there's some agency and independence as well.
She's still handed off from one man to another, and there's not a ton of change in her agency. That if we say that's her goal, is wanting more and wanting agency and wanting to be able to do what she wants.
Yeah, and it's similar to Pirates too, where we talk about how like Jack sort of has has the relationship with the antagonist and kind of has the sort of problem solving and action, whereas Will has the emotional arc. So I think when you naturally have like co-leads, they kind of have to share responsibilities. It could be a little weird, I guess. And I guess depending, like, then it goes into like more subjective, how if it bothers you that they're so shared and one-sided on one way or whatever. But
yeah, but that's all I can really say about it.
yeah,
I don't think that the protagonist necessarily needs to like have any kind of special relationship with like the villain or the antagonist, or like necessarily be like that mirror or that foil to them. Because we keep talking about, like, oh, like, yeah, Will has the arc and he makes the decisions, but Jack has that relationship with the antagonist, so that should be a reason why he's considered protagonist. I don't necessarily think that's, like, entirely necessary.
I guess...
Because Robbie talked about, like, the Lord of the Rings and, like, the Fellowship of the Ring. It's, like, for sake of argument, the villain of the Fellowship of the Ring is, like, Saruman. And, like, okay...
His
like,
foil's Gandalf, not...
Like, Gandalf, not Frodo. But, like, then you get into, like, oh, is the protagonist Frodo, or is it the entire Fellowship? And I think we've talked about before, we consider the protagonist to be Frodo, but Frodo and Saruman are not, like, foils
Frodo
to each other.
and Sauron are.
I mean, but in the context of that one movie... But we're not talking about Lord of the Rings.
Anyway,
that's a much bigger can of worms.
and so I don't think that I don't think a protagonist necessarily has to have some kind of like relationship or foil with the antagonist to be labeled the protagonist.
Yeah, because look at let's go with a much simpler example. Die Hard.
Yeah.
John McClane is the protagonist. Hans Gruber is the antagonist. They have no connection to one another. They don't even speak to each other until halfway through the film.
Yeah, but I think when I say connection, I sort of mean like they have like opposing, maybe not morals but motivations. And I think like in Die Hard it's more of like a moral sense, and then
Die Hard they represent order versus chaos because John McClane's a cop and
then I think in
Gruber's a terrorist.
Pirates of the Caribbean it's like a strong kind of more evil, like kind of stricter Barbossa with like a more bumbling kind of ridiculous Jack. And I think that's where their opposites kind of create a sort of protagonist-antagonist thing, because they're so different on how they approach life, yet they're both revered pirates, that I think kind of show that kind of clash. And I think that's just a natural like sort of screenwriting type deal where you want your protagonist and antagonist to be opposing forces,
like
complementary, have opposite motivations, be opposing forces, because if they are, then they're constantly going to be in conflict. And I think that's why I kind of give Jack Sparrow that kind of need to be a co-lead, because I think it's important, because I think when you do Will and Barbossa, then it's just like I feel like they're more similar than Jack and
I feel like that works perfectly fine. So like I feel like it's very similar to the Die Hard one, where like Will is like he's the civilian, he's the order, he's the peace. Barbossa is a pirate, he is the chaos, he is the death.
He's evil.
Will's
a very pure figure.
Yeah, Will's the good, Barbossa's the bad. I feel like it's there without Jack.
I mean, but Will still like uses like pirates to save Elizabeth, so he kind of isn't so pure in
well, that's
himself.
a part of his arc.
Yeah, it's part of his arc, because he goes from being this like very upstanding citizen blacksmith to becoming a pirate by the end of the movie.
That's like his first major decision that drives the story is, I need to work with pirates to stop the pirates. Even though, when you meet him and he's fighting Jack, he's like, oh yeah, I practice with my swords, so when I meet a pirate, I can kill him because there's nothing worse than a pirate.
Right.
I guess so. I mean, I see your point.
So there's a lot going on here. Some of these are more complex than others, for sure. But let's move on to the one film we haven't talked about this week, Aladdin. So, Jafar is also the protagonist.
No, I love Aladdin. It's my favorite Disney movie. I think Aladdin is well developed. I think he definitely has a personality. And he's very charming and smart. I think he kind of falls into some of the same trappings as some of the other ones we've talked about today. I think, kind of going back to when we were talking about story, he himself he's not terribly active as a protagonist. He doesn't really make a lot of the decisions. The things just kind of happen around him and he goes with it. And I think that is kind of a knock towards him as a protagonist because he doesn't actually drive the story that much. He doesn't really have an arc.
He's got a rags to riches story.
From rags to riches, but that doesn't really change his character as much as...
it was literally just thinking about this between recordings and stuff. I actually think his arc is sort of about like a change from like altruism, because I think he's like a guy who is like poor and has to like fight for bread and stuff, and then he gets this genie who can give him magical powers and he can do whatever he wants with it. He kind of uses it to get riches and stuff like that, but I think through his adventures and stuff, like the fact that he uses his last wish as like a selfless act, like it show that, I think that alone shows his change.
No, that's
like,
true.
Yeah. Like he's no more about like material. He's now about the relationship.
Because if you look at his first wish, which is to become Prince Ali, which is to get even more fabulously wealthy and extravagant and affluent, and then his final wish is an entirely selfless. He's giving up essentially limitless power to free his friend.
Yeah.
I didn't think the wish to be Prince Ali was I didn't think that was about like the materialism. I thought that was because he wanted Jasmine, so he's like, oh, she can only marry a prince, and Genie's like, I can make you a prince, and so he did it. Like he became the prince, so he could.
I mean, but I
think it's kind of both, because I think it represents materialism. I think his character motivation was not that, but I think like the wish itself kind of represents this kind of material gain.
But
I think also he kind of sees Jasmine as sort of like an idea of like a great life too. So I think it also is very selfish, because he's like, he wants to have a better life both in like rich, like having rich things and having a rich fulfilled love, because he like, I think he kind of, that's still pretty selfish, because he's still trying to insert himself into her life. I wouldn't say
he's a selfish character at the start though, because he gives away the bread at the beginning.
And he saves Jasmine from the guards.
I mean, he's still noble. You don't have to be. You can be selfish, but still not be like evil.
But like, he
maybe not
easily could have chosen not to give.
Yeah,
the
he
bread.
didn't have to give the bread.
That's true. I mean,
that's
true.
definitely a very like character defining altruistic.
Maybe he's just too obsessed with material, because he still uses his wish to have like a better fulfilled life. But it doesn't make him selfish. It could just mean he thinks a good life is having a lot of money and.
Well, I think a lot of it is
being
like
high esteemed.
I don't necessarily know that that's the right argument you're making. I would just say like I would think his first wish is more like it's not about having the things. He just thinks he needs them to get to Jasmine, not realizing
that's what I was trying.
Yeah, not realizing that himself, who he already is enough to like win her heart, because he already has. It's the fact that he thinks he needs these things to do it.
I have a question that I just thought of.
Mm-hmm.
So when the genie makes him a prince, is he just disguising him as a prince, or does he make him an actual prince? Because here's the thing to me, is that if he's having to hide, this is just a weird, like, this has nothing to really do with it. But, like, if the genie makes him a prince, isn't he a prince? Like, he's not hiding as Aladdin anymore. He is then...
I mean, the implication in the way he interacts in the movie would think that Genie dresses him up like a prince, not that he bestows upon him actual...
He doesn't create a kingdom.
Like, he doesn't create a kingdom that Aladdin is now the prince of.
I feel like he could have, but this
is a weird... Yeah, he could have, because being, again, with, like, limitless
unlimited
power.
Cosmic power.
But...
The extended lore of the Aladdin universe.
But then, you bring up an interesting point, but, like, the way they interact in the movie and the fact that he can't be found out makes me think that it is just a ruse. It's a very elaborate one.
Yeah.
So, that was just a weird thing.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point you bring up, though.
It's no pro or con for the character.
But it's an interesting point.
Okay, but now to my, like, question... that like might actually do something with this. How much more do we know about Aladdin at the beginning than we do about Ariel?
I mean, as far as like personality, or is that where you're getting at?
I feel like they have just as much charisma and personality at the beginning.
I would think maybe you learn maybe a little more about Aladdin, because I think you get a few more moments of him, kind of like, whether it's the bread moment and you see like the heart in that, or like
just any of his charm with Jasmine.
Him with Jasmine, him talking to Abu about things, his kind of dreaming, because they're similar characters because they both
right.
have very
they
big
are
dreams.
very similar.
I do think that you might get a little bit more from Aladdin, and that also could be kind of like Disney learning from its like own previous work.
That's what I think it is.
Thinking you have because they're like, this character is very similar to that. What did we do in this? What can we do better? And so I do think
Maybe.
I think Aladdin is a little more, not a great degree, because I think you're on the right track, but I do think Aladdin is a little more developed, or at least kind of well.
And maybe you get more of that because there's more opportunities for him to be altruistic because he's poor. Like Ariel does come from privilege and that, you know.
Yeah.
But to bounce off of that, it's like to a very to a degree, you get like a hair more personality out of Aladdin. I feel that kind of comes with like the story that they're telling.
Yeah.
Because Ariel, it's all about like these two completely separate worlds, and so you can't have her interact with Eric right off the bat like you do with Aladdin and Jasmine. So it's like
you just get Eric passed out.
So there's a hair more to Aladdin, but like they are very similar now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is anyone else have anything to say?
Those are our 4 movies.
Yeah, I feel like my biggest knock against Aladdin is that like he does not really drive things forward. Like we've talked about, he is just kind of like thrown into all of these things.
You can't even ask to get saved from
Yeah.
drowning.
I'm just gonna because like the thing where
He
Aladdin
can't even make that decision.
Die.
Yeah, no, because Aladdin can't.
What a bitch.
Because Aladdin, I would say, isn't a static character, but he's not a dynamic character.
He's in that weird like in between gray spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is another one where you don't have a shared protagonist for sure.
Yeah,
Because
For sure.
No, for sure.
But he doesn't have a
The
great
carpet,
arc.
though. The carpet.
Carpet has an arc.
Yeah.
Carpet's actually the protagonist.
Yeah. Unsung hero. Maybe
Okay.
doesn't start till you're 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
All right, shall we move on?
Yeah, those are
Our winners and losers?
Yeah, we gotta
Okay,
talk about
that's
our
it.
winners and losers.
All right. Well, as these weeks passes, it gets
Gets hard.
harder and
Yep.
harder. So we'll start with winners. I guess I'll go first. My winner this week, I give it a lot of thought. I think my winner this week is Beauty and the Beast. I think that considering them as co-leads, which you kind of have to, especially in this case, there's very little ambiguity with who's the co-lead versus not co-lead in this movie, and I think together they're both, even the Beast and Belle are both well-developed, well-established characters that go kind of on this arc together. Like, it belongs to the Beast character, but like the fact that she facilitates it means that like she's equally important to it. And I think overall that they're two very strong, and they're two very different characters. And the fact that they're co-leads who are, because you have like Lilo and Stitch, who are kind of similar characters because they're both, they kind of have a similar attitude. But this one, they're two very different characters. And so it works quite well that it works out like that. So Beauty and the Beast is my number one.
Good.
Nice. This is I think one of the few times where the winner for me is like a bit of a gray area, because I'm like not 100% sure. Like some where I'm like, this is the winner. I am on the fence, but I think if I'm really just going my heart, I'm leaning to Aladdin. I think Aladdin's maybe my winner for the protagonist. I understand some of the the criticisms of it. Some of them I agree with. Some of them I am in disagreement with. But I just think he's like such a great character. I think he's like such a fun person as a personality. I think he tells a great story for himself. I think he has like a pretty good arc, and I think he presents. I think he isn't necessarily so active, but I think he has some active qualities that do make him that do progress the story. Not like at certain moments. Like I don't think he's just like flat out not active, and I just think he's a wonderful character. He's like my ideal protagonist for Disney movies. So I'm going with Aladdin.
This week, I have to go with Beauty and the Beast. And with the fact that Belle and the Beast are absolutely like the co-leads, They're, because if you just took one or the other, I think that you get half of a protagonist there. And while I have my qualms about it, I think when we're considering the two of them as a package deal, that they even outweigh our other package deal up here. So I think Carter said it best. I don't need to say anything too much more about it. I think they're my winner this week.
My winner this week is also going to be Beauty and the Beast, and I don't know what I can say that hasn't already been said. I feel like they have, between the two of them, the most personality, probably, and it's just when we were talking about all these other ones, just like when you can so just clearly state, like, yes, these are the co-leads, rather than have it being a little muddled up like Pirates of the Caribbean. It's just the fact that they can be the co-leads and be co-leads so just not effortlessly but so well, just yeah it's good.
Well, those are our winners.
Yeah, as with every winner, there must also be a loser. This week it was actually pretty easy for me. I think I'm saying goodbye to The Little Mermaid, Ariel. I think when looking at all the other movies, obviously Beauty and the Beast was my winner. I think Aladdin is a stronger character just by a hair, even though he isn't very dynamic in his story. He was probably the other closest to getting voted off for me this week. And then Pirates of the Caribbean, as muddled as we got with the discussion of who is the protagonist, I think whether it's Will or Jack or both, I still think both of them are a stronger character than Ariel. So I'm voting off Ariel this week.
I don't know if I'm ready. Is it possible to come back to me?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm still deciding.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Brett, you want to take it? Because I'm also sitting here mulling over my decision.
Geez, I thought I had it. But my vote is going to be for The Little Mermaid, just because, yeah, even though Pirates is muddled, when I think that Will is the protagonist, and we all accept that Will is at least part of the protagonist, he has more of that change, he has more of that arc, he has more of that personality to him than Ariel. Ariel's great, I love her, but yeah, just even though it's muddled, looking at them objectively as the characters, they are a little bit stronger than Ariel is. So I don't like it, but my vote's for The Little Mermaid.
Robbie, are you ready or do you
I'm
want me to
ready.
go? Okay, I'll let you go.
This week I'm gonna give it to Aladdin. I'm sitting here between the two, and while you guys say it's he's a hair better, I think that Ariel's a hair better. It's really getting down on the wire for me. This is the hardest decision I think I've had to make this whole season. But I just think that Aladdin's too passive in the story, and he doesn't have as good of an arc as Ariel does. I think that, Ariel has this arc that, about agency and about learning to, be yourself, but also never forget where you came from. So, whereas Aladdin, he's got a nice rags to riches story. He's got charisma, but he's very passive in his story. And while he does have that moment of wit where he gets to outwit his villain, there's not much more going on for him. So for that reason, Aladdin is gonna leave the kingdom for me this week.
Well, I'll say that in a way my vote doesn't matter, because the two that I'm between, and I haven't answered, I've decided, but the two in between is Little Mermaid and Pirates of the Caribbean. And I mean, either way it goes to Little Mermaid, but I'm just stuck because I think, when I compare characters and kind of who they are and their complexity, their personality, their layers, their kind of their own person themselves, I give the edge to Pirates of the Caribbean. If I were to talk about how they fit in their story, I would maybe give the edge to Ariel. Not that Pirates doesn't, but just because it's still muddled to me with the whole co-lead, and if it is Will, then Jack is sort of the problem solver, and it's a little strange, and it's kind of weird to me. But I think if I'm going with my heart, and it could even change in the next few minutes, but I think I'm gonna go with Ariel and The Little Mermaid. I think that's what I'm voting off because it's just I think it just suffers from just being one of the older movies and not having the knowledge of how to better layer and create more personality with a character than other movies that have come after it. So unfortunately I have to vote out The Little Mermaid. I'm really sad about it.
Yeah. This is a shame because we're talking about songs. We're talking about music next week.
I know.
And I'm just...
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, want to all change over now. I'm just kidding. But let's real quickly do our social media handles, our recommendations, and wrap up.
You can find me on Twitter at CASpilliards, like spill something in your yard and add an S. My recommendation this week, I actually just watched it before we started recording, 2006's The Departed, Martin Scorsese's film. He finally won the Oscar for Best Director, won Best Picture that year. I think, I don't necessarily know if it's my favorite of his or even up there in my top 5, but it is a very good movie, and it's got a lot of really good twists and turns, and I think he even made the joke when he won the Oscar that this is his first movie with a plot, and it kind of is, but I really enjoy it. So if you haven't seen The Departed, please check it out. It is very good.
You can find me on Snapchat at Brett JHNSN1. Post a review of a movie almost every day. You see it, see if you agree or disagree, let me know, we'll talk about it. My recommendation this week is going to be the old horror film, not the remake, the old original one, The Haunting, which is very spooky, very atmospheric, very good. Watch it with headphones because the sound in that movie is so good. You can hear the spirits floating around, all the sound effects. It's dated, but it's very good.
How spoopy.
Were you asking a question there, or were you just...
I was just stating.
Well, okay then.
Carter, you have been off this whole night.
Well, I am Robbie_DShazer on Twitter and Instagram. Go follow me there. I post pretty frequently. My recommendation for this week is one of my favorite television series of all time, The West Wing. It's really good. Guys, if you haven't been on the West Wing hype train, it's, get on it. It's worth the hype. It's, such quality writing from Aaron Sorkin, such quality acting. President Bartlett should be the real president. I don't care what party you vote for. But yeah, West Wing's my recommendation, and you know where to find me on the internet.
You can find me at BombasPhoenix on Twitter. Hope I tweet things you like. I was a little struggling on finding recommendation because I was going to say The Departed, but I'm going to go ahead and say this movie came out last year, maybe a little overlooked, though understandably, I guess. I'm going to recommend The Little Hours by, I believe, his Jeff Baena, director. It's on Amazon Prime if you got that. It's a really funny comedy with a lot of funny people. Aubrey Plaza, Allison Brie, John C. Reilly, Fred Armisen, Molly Shannon, a lot of funny people. Dave Franco, the main lead. Dave Franco, John Gabris, Adam Pally. It's a really funny comedy. It's if you like that kind of explicit kind of dirty, funny comedy stuff. It does it well, I think, and
it's hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's because it was if it's independent film, it got a little overlooked because it wasn't a lot of theaters, but
it's also very beautiful.
It is a beautiful.
It got overshadowed by another Aubrey Plaza joint.
Yes, Ingrid Goes West that also came up pretty nearby.
I liked it significantly more than Ingrid Goes West.
I also like it more than Ingrid Goes West.
It's beautiful. The whole thing was shot on location, I'm pretty sure.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Go check it out.
I would check it out. Yeah, if you want a good laugh.
Well, that was those things.
That was the show.
That's going to do it for us here at
Yeah.
Film Fracas.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at Film Fracas on all of those. Check out our merch. There's a link in the description, or just go to Teespring and search Film Fracas. Use our Amazon affiliate link. It'll be in the description as well.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And
as always, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Film Fracas. We know there are a lot of shows on the web, and we are so glad you took the time to listen to ours. Thank you Brett Johnson, Robbie DeShazer, and Phoenix Zarola for helping to write and produce each episode of the show. There's no team behind Film Fracas, it's just us, so consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you listen. It really does help get the word out. You can follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Film Fracas. Once again, thanks for listening, and we can't wait for you to hear our next episode.